Welcome back, and I'm going to be showing you how I fit brake pads to my VW Transporter van. Today I'm going to be fitting performance brake pads to the van, but this will work for fitting normal brake pads as well. So this is the van I'm going to be showing you how to change brake pads on. It's a 2020 VW Transporter. This needs a set of front pads and rear pads, so I'll show you both now. So these are all the tools you'll need to change the brake pads. You'll need a socket set, clean microfiber cloths. This is the tool which VW provides to remove the wheels. I find it easy to use in a socket. A brake piston pusher tool, some chocks for the wheels, a flathead screwdriver, copper grease, a trolley jack. I'm using the low profile 2-ton trolley jack, and then some axle stands. First up, we'll focus on the front pads. So first you need to take this cover off just using a flathead screwdriver, and then you can loosen the bolts whilst it's still on the ground. So now the car's all jacked up on jack stands, we can remove the trolley jack away and hold it up so that the wheel is ready to be taken off. You can get away with one jack stand, but I'm using two on the subframe just because of the weight of the vehicle. These are 2-ton jack stands, so they can hold the van more than easy enough, but I just want to be extra safe. To take the wheel off, it's just 5 19mm bolts. And that's the wheel off. So I always put the wheel just underneath the car, just in case there's a bit of added protection. But now it's time to take the caliper off. So the caliper is held on at the back here by 2 16mm nuts. So we'll drop those off, but first we need to remove the cap off the brake fluid reservoir. So I've just removed the cap just for when we push the pistons back and putting the new pads on. It just allows the brake fluid to be pushed back into the reservoir. So to take off the caliper, you need to remove this top and this bottom 15mm bolt, which removes the caliper and the piston, but keeps the caliper bracket attached to the wheel. And that's the piston off. So here's the pads. As you can see, these have still got quite a bit of life on them, but it was flagging up on the dashboard that the sensor had detected that they needed changing, so I thought it was best to. I'm also fitting performance brake pads, so it's also a bit of a upgrade from that side. But now we can just take the pads out. The brake pad wear sensor is on the other side. They have one per axle, so you've got front and a rear. So the brake pad sensor is on the other wheel, which I'll show you that on the rear because it's on this side on the rear. So the pads are out, and you also have to take out these little clips which just hold them back so they sit on this bit here. Let's give this all clean down now with brake cleaner and get ready to fit the new pads. So these are the pads I'm fitting today. They're from the guys at New Texas Frictions, and they're performance pads which fit directly to the Transporter. So heard great stuff about these. They're made specially for VW, so they should be really good. When refitting the brake pads, you need to now then make sure to fit these new clips which come with the pads here. So that one will be for that one there. Swap those in. Can't do it with one hand, but yeah, slot those in and then you can fit the brake pads in. And that's the pads fitted. I always add a bit of copper grease at the back of the pads, and then also make sure not to miss out these little brass flanges which fit onto the pads and hold them into position. So now we can push the pistons back on the caliper and refit the caliper. To push the pistons back, you're going to need a piston rewinding tool like this one. You can pick these up from any motor shop really, so or Euro car parts, anything like that, and that just pushes that part which you can see there of the piston back. And that's the pistons pushed back. So I forgot to film it, so I'll show you that on the rear wheel. But now it's pushed back, we can refit the caliper after giving this all a big clean. And now that's the caliper back on, it's time to put the wheel back on. So now the wheel's back on, we can drop the van down and then torque the wheel bolts up to specification. And that's the fronts all changed. Now time to move on to so when doing the rears, very similar process to the front, but you need to chock the front wheels of the van whilst you're doing the rears, just as the handbrake is connected to the rear caliper. So when it's up in the air, to take the caliper off, you need to remove the handbrake. So just chock the front wheels, but keep the handbrake on until the last minute you need to take it off. So now the front wheels are chocked, we are able to remove the rear wheels in exactly the same process we did the front wheel. And now the rear wheel's off, we can drop the caliper off. So these bolts are small at the back, these are just 13mm bolts. We'll drop those off and then the caliper comes off. So now the bolts are out, we've got the scary bit of removing the handbrake so we can take this caliper off. And that is the caliper removed. And as you can see here, this is the sensor which I was on about, which is the brake wear sensor. So this connects here to this part. So we need to take this off and fit a new one when we fit the new brake pads. But now let's remove the pads first. That's it all removed. You can see this is where the sensor plugs into, and then it just clips onto the pad as is shown here. And this is how the new sensor fits in here. So you can see it just slots in that gap there with a cable coming out this way ready to be plugged in. And then this little metal flange here, we just push down to secure it onto that little ring there. So the metal clips on the rear brakes are all one piece. You need to pop these out and give them a clean. You don't get new ones when you fit rear pads, so you just give them all a clean, you can fit them back in. So now the pads are back on, we can push the piston back in the caliper and then get this caliper back on. So the tool sits on 2 grooves in the piston and then clamps against the other side of the caliper and just puts even pressure on the whole piston when pushing it back in, just to ensure it goes back in flat and flush. So now the pistons are all pushed back, as you can see in there. We can refit this caliper. First, we need to reconnect the brake pad sensor to the other end of the sensor over here. That's the sensors reconnected, and then this just sits on this part of the bolt which connects to the brake caliper here. And putting the caliper back on is exactly the same process as the front one, so we'll do that now. And that's the brake caliper all back on. So now we can just re-put the handbrake back on. So that's the brake caliper back on. So now we can reapply the handbrake and then fit this rear wheel. Back onto the ground and recheck the torque of all 4 wheels now that all the pads have been changed. So when torquing up a wheel, I'll always do it in a star pattern. So I'll do that one, then that one, then that one, then that one, then that one, just so it puts even pressure when tightening the wheel back down. Now on a drive to bed the brake pads in, and then when we get back we'll just check all the wheels are still correctly torqued up. So that's the brake pads all changed. Taking it out for a drive now and it feels great. Everything's bedded in, done about 60 miles since I've changed them and they're all good, so very happy with that. The performance on them's great, so super happy. Thanks for watching. Check out my other videos on how I'm converting this van into my dream mountain bike camper. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Cheers.